Returning now to our coverage of the UN General Assembly. CTV's Colton Praill is standing by outside the United Nations with the latest. Hi there, Colton. What more can you tell us about what we're hearing from the Prime Minister today?
Yeah, Carolyn, he spoke at a fireside chat earlier this afternoon where for the first time we heard from Mark Carney on the rationale behind Canada's decision to recognize the state of Palestine. Of course, he put out a lengthy statement yesterday where he explained some of the reasons and some of the reasoning for Canada to move forward with this, why he thought it was the appropriate time to do so now. He repeated some of those reasons today, highlighting, for example, increased settler activity in the West Bank, settler extremism. He talked about the fact that he feels as though right now both Hamas and Israel are refusing to recognize the other as a state, and that the idea of a two-state solution being an end goal to negotiations he felt was receding. And he said it was important for Canada and other allies who went and recognized the state of Palestine as well to keep that idea on the shelf. Now, he was pressed on whether or not this meant meaningful changes. Here's what he had to say. Have a listen.
We're under no illusions that this is any sort of panacea, but it's necessary in our judgment, and the judgment of most other countries in the world, that we have to push on this now because, as I say, the possibility in absolute violation of the UN Charter and in absolute violation of international law of self-determination for the Palestinian peoples is being erased.
And Carolyn, you heard him talk about most other countries in the world. Obviously, the U.S. and Israel have both opposed this decision that Canada, the U.K., Australia, Portugal, and now France have made as well. Mark Carney is actually actively in the room in a high conference specifically focused on pushing forward a two-state solution, and he will be making some remarks again a little later on this afternoon. It'll be interesting to see if his remarks there differ from what we just heard. That was at a fireside chat outside of the UN. Of course, these will be inside the UN. He'll also be surrounded by countries that he described earlier in the day as influential but maybe not decisive in being able to put enough pressure on Israel to move forward with the two-state solution.
Colton, a moment ago you just talked about the opposition from the United States. So are we hearing anything from the White House on this matter?
We have, for months, seen a very standard and similar response from the White House. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, a couple of weeks ago, warned allies not to unilaterally recognize the state of Palestine. In a White House briefing earlier this afternoon, Carolyn Levitt spoke, the White House press secretary. In it, she hinted that Donald Trump, in his speech tomorrow, is likely to address this issue, and it's likely to be in line with some of his earlier comments. Have a listen.
As for all of these Western nations that are recognizing a Palestinian state, the president has been very clear. He disagrees with this decision. He spoke about that in the UK, standing right next to his friend, Prime Minister Starmer. And he feels this does not do anything to release the hostages, which is the primary goal right now in Gaza, does nothing to end this conflict and bring this war to a close. And frankly, he believes it's a reward to Hamas. So he believes these decisions are just more talk and not enough action from some of our friends and allies, and I think you'll hear him talk about that tomorrow at the UN.
And that critique that this rewards Hamas, that this doesn't do anything to free the allies, is not just an American critique. We've heard it here from Jewish Canadians as well, including the mother of a Canadian October 7th victim. Alexandra Luke's mother, Raquel Luke, mentioned that same thing to me when I spoke with her last night, saying she felt particularly betrayed by this decision because of the timing and because it did very little to help those who were already either still held hostage or those whose remains were still held hostage.
Colton, thank you for this. Colton Praill outside the UN in New York for us today. Appreciate this.